All right, so the big question, guys, can you lose fat and build muscle at the same time? Is it possible? Well, let me kind of first introduce myself. My name is Mike Over. I've been in the industry for about 15 years, seeing what exactly needs to happen for this to work. And I've been featured in Men's Health, T Nation, Elite Fitness. I even have my own news segment with ABC News. So I have done a lot of research on my own. And actually, I'm a big fan of saying practical application beats any study. But yes, there actually are studies that have shown that this is possible under certain conditions. So actually one in 2010 came out and it actually proved that actually they lost a lot of body fat while gaining muscle. So let's talk about these conditions. Let's get right into it. Now, when you're trying to lose fat and build muscle, I always am gonna say, you have to first have step one done. Now, is it possible with people with more experience in the gym to do it? I would say yes, but it's kind of like riding a bike to California when you can drive or ride in an airplane. It just is very, very inefficient, right? To try to do it simultaneously versus trying to go into a phase of adding muscle versus a phase of losing fat. So now, if you have experience that is less than 16 to 20 months in the gym training rigorously with weights and new to the idea of lifting relatively, you're gonna find that this is a lot more possible for you. And that's become a lot more aware with my knowledge and actually application of who I've worked with the hundreds of men and women over the last decade. So that's your first stipulation. Now, if you fall in that category, let's talk about number two, nutrition. So I created this awesome little chart for you here just to give you an idea. So say you've got your schedule out Monday through Sunday. All I want you to think in the grand scheme of things is your lifting days to add a little bit more calories, your off days to add a little bit less calories. So surplus on lifting, deficit on your rest days. Your deficit can be a little bit more than your surplus days. Why? Because when you're actually trying to build muscle and lose body fat, you're going to naturally have to eat a little bit less or burn a little bit more fuel. So doing that with your cardiovascular work being at maintenance on those days, right? That can help your body also utilize the carbohydrates needed. For those of you that like to say, well, I'm gonna go low carb, well, your body's gonna need them, especially for mTOR, which is your signaling of cell muscular growth, right? So you've gotta have carbohydrates to build muscle. I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, it's that analogy of what would you rather do when it becomes to making things easier on yourself? So same thing, right? It's very inefficient for your body not to run off protein and carbs to build muscle. So if you're gonna rely on fat, it's gonna be a lot more difficult for you to sustain, honestly, also have energy and performance that's gonna help you build muscle. So I recommend keeping your carbs in, but just kind of then thinking, lifting days, a little bit more, cardio days, but stay the same, maintenance calories, right? So for most people, you know, that are in the average weight class of say, I don't know, 180 pounds and the normal activity, then you're probably around 1,800 to 2,000 calories at maintenance. Rest days, a little bit deficit, and then I like to throw in, you know, a hit day because obviously I find the most success with going back into now number three, okay? Your training. What does your training actually look like? So over the years, I've found that lifting is gonna be your best bet when it comes to building muscle, right? You've gotta lift weights, that's common knowledge. And when you lift weights, it's gotta be in I want to say a rep range that makes it doable for you to actually grow muscle. So playing with your 5 and 10 pound dumbbells is not going to be as efficient for you to get into more of the 8 to 12 rep range, get into the hypertrophy range, get some sets to failure, and focus on even just because a lot of people think you got to lift every day. No, 3 to 4 days is plenty. And then what I love doing is adding a few metabolic finishers into the ending, right? So you get a little bit, because a lot of people are like, well, if I got to add my cardio, how can I do that? And I get it, okay? A lot of dads that I work with are busy. We don't have time to have 2 workouts a day or split that up and say, oh, you gotta do your cardio for it. No, I mean, come on. A lot of people, I'm lucky if I get my 45 minutes in the morning. So what I love and have found more effective is to pick 1 to 2 strength exercises, right? So maybe it's going to be a deadlift for you and then a chest supported row for day 1, right? Then from there, maybe 1 assistance exercise. Maybe you're going to do some lat pull downs. Then you're going to go right into a metabolic finisher, right? 15 minutes, right? So maybe you're going to do some kettlebell swings. Maybe you're going to do some more rope slams. Maybe you're going to do some med ball work, something that's going to get your heart rate up, something that can challenge you, maybe some carries. It can be more GPP, so general preparedness work finishers. I love sled work. These things can help really bring in the wellness of more caloric expenditure. Well, also I find it helps retain muscle mass, which is key because when you keep your protein high, because no one's ever told you to drop protein. We're not doing that. That's silliness. Even if you're in a deficit, no, protein always stays relatively high, right? I like to say at least 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And if you're in a deficit, a little bit higher. Now, you get your lifts in. You do some metabolic finishers at the end of your strength training days. And if you want to separate them, you can, right? So if you want to just strength train on those 3 to 4 days and then have 2 to 3 days of straight up cardio, great, go for it, right? And I'm one that I like to do cardio daily, whether it's walking or some list cardio. Sometimes I'll even get out for like some sprint work or some hill sprints, and that can be very effective for you. Just make sure those days that you have more activity than you're used to, you're fueling yourself because you still have to provide energy for your body. If you're gonna go out there and try to just, perform and get it done, I would rather you rest and walk and get the benefits from that low impact, low stress activity than go try to do some running, some sprinting, and some HIIT work when you're not fueled correctly. Why? Because that's gonna lead you to step 4, right? Recovery and stress. If you're trying to train on a body that's stressed out and inflamed, that's gonna hurt your ability to lose fat or build muscle. 2 different things, right? So that's why in my world of functional medicine, I've seen it time after time, women coming in, men coming in, trying to do these HIIT workouts and they get stuck nowhere, nothing because their bodies can't handle it. So you've got to also remember that when it comes to fueling and also the stress your body can take. So if you come off a heavy lift day and you're trying to go right into doing some sprint work the next day, but you're so sore, you got to be making sure you're fueling correctly enough that you can perform, or you're taking the day easier and doing really steady state cardio or low impact cardiovascular work that can help you recover. Not meaning take the day off, because you can still expand calories to help with this method, but you want to make sure that you're keeping stress low. Whether you do some heat cold therapy, infrared sauna, whether you do some Epsom salt soaks, anything that can help with, obviously, recovery of the body. Now, I hope that these 4 steps make it simple for you, but yet understand that when it comes down to the fact, it's possible, but you have to have a new lifting age. If you don't, and you're more of like a 2-year plus lifter, then I suggest that if you want to attempt this, that you stick to your this same method, right? But you still now have to manipulate your nutrition a little bit more and keep your protein a little bit higher even. And you might see some success, right? So I have seen it with people that are more seasoned in their lifting career where they can still build muscle and lose body fat, but it's very difficult. But what I suggest is then going through maybe 3 days where you're in more of a surplus with your food, 3 days we're in more of a deficit. So the little bit of cycling with your nutrition can give your body that awareness of, hey, time to use it, hey, time to store and save and make sure that I'm using this energy for fuel. So that variance can help, but ultimately I see the most success with people that are seasoned with their lifting into splitting things in segments, right? So you might go through an 8 weeks of a fat loss stage where you're trying to do more fat loss. Maybe you're upping cardio a little bit. Maybe you're doing a little bit more lighter loads, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to, right? Because you can lose fat just lifting weights. It's possible. It's easier. It's less stress on the body. But those of you that like the challenge to burn more energy, so you don't have to actually control your nutrition as much, because you can then have that extra saving of, hey, I burn a little bit more calories doing cardiovascular work, so I can eat a little bit more. That's a benefit, and that can help too. So the more activity, the less you have to care about dropping calories lower. Some of you might find that simply pushing the plate away is easier for you. Some of you might find that hopping on the cardio machine for an extra 10, 15 minutes is easier for you. You do what works for you. But I will say, as a seasoned lifter, that splitting it into segments of maybe 6 to 12 weeks for a fat loss phase, and then for a muscle gain phase, you're looking at 3 to 6 months. So you can incorporate mini cuts throughout there. Check out my video mini cuts if you're interested in learning about those, but hopefully this gives you a good idea as to how it's possible. So God bless. Hopefully this helps. Make sure you like, subscribe, and stay tuned for an awesome opportunity for you to join my tribe of men that help become better leaders, better fathers, and better people for those around them.